The North American Aviation T-6 Texan was a single-engined advanced trainer aircraft used to train pilots of the United States Army Air Forces, United States Navy, Royal Air Force and other air forces of the British Commonwealth during World War II and into the 1970s. Designed by North American Aviation, the T-6 is known by a variety of designations depending on the model and operating air force. The United States Army Air Corps and USAAF designated it as the AT-6, the United States Navy the SNJ, and British Commonwealth Air Forces, the Harvard, the name it is best known by outside of the U.S. After 1962, U.S. forces designated it the T-6. It remains a popular warbird aircraft used for airshow demonstrations and static displays. It has also been used many times to simulate the Japanese Mitsubishi Zero and movies depicting World War II in the Pacific. Development. The Texan originated from the North American NA-16 prototype which, modified as the NA-26, was submitted as an entry for a USAAC basic combat aircraft competition in March, 1937. The first model went into production and 180 was supplied to the USAAC as the BC-1 and 400 to the RAF as the Harvard I. The U.S. Navy received 16 modified aircraft, designated the SNJ-1, and a further 61 as the SNJ-2 with a different engine. The BC-1 was the production version of the NA-26 prototype, with retractable tailwheel landing gear and the provision for armament, a two-way radio, and the 550 HP R1340-47 engine as standard equipment. Production versions included the BC-1 with only minor modifications, of which 30 were modified as BC-1I instrument trainers. The BC-1A with airframe revisions. And a single BC-1B with a modified wing center section. 3 BC-2 aircraft were built before the shift to the Advanced Trainer designation, AT-6, which was equivalent to the BC-1A. The differences between the AT-6 and the BC-1 were new outer wing panels with a swept-forward trailing edge, squared-off wingtips and a triangular rudder, producing the canonical Texan silhouette. After a change to the rear of the canopy, the AT-6 was designated the Harvard II for RAF/RCAF orders and 1,173 were supplied by purchase or lend-lease, mostly operating in Canada as part of the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan. Next came the AT-6A which was based on the NA-77 design and was powered by the Pratt & Whitney R1340-49 Wasp radial engine. The USAAF received 1,549 and the U.S. Navy 270. The AT-6B was built for gunnery training and could mount a .30 and machine gun on the forward fuselage. It used the R1340AN1 engine, which was to become the standard for the remaining T-6 production. Canada's North-American Aviation built an R1340AN1 powered version of the AT-6A, which was supplied to the USAAF as the AT-16 and the RAF/RCAF as the Harvard IIB, some of which also served with the Fleet Air Arm and Royal Canadian Navy. In late 1937 Mitsubishi purchased 2 NA-16s as technology demonstrators and possibly a license to build more. However, the aircraft developed by Watanabe Kyushu as the K-10W1 bore no more than a superficial resemblance to the North American design. It featured a full monocoque fuselage as opposed to the steel tube fuselage of the T-6 and NA-16 family of aircraft, as well as being of smaller dimensions overall and had no design details in common with the T-6. It was used in very small numbers by the Imperial Japanese Navy from 1942 onwards. After the war the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force operated Texans. The NA-88 design resulted in 2,970 AT-6C Texans and 2,400 as the SNJ-4. The RAF received 726 of the AT-6C as the Harvard IIA. Modifications to the electrical system produced the AT-6D and SNJ-5. The AT-6D, redesignated the Harvard III, was supplied to the RAF and Fleet Air Arm. The AT-6G involved major advancements including a full-time hydraulic system and a steerable tailwheel and persisted into the 1950s as the USAAF Advanced Trainer. Subsequently the NA-121 design with a completely clear rearmost section on the canopy, gave rise to 25 T-6F Texans for the USAAF and 931, as the SNJ-6 for the U.S. Navy. The ultimate version, the Harvard 4, was produced by Canada Car and Foundry during the 1950s, and supplied to the RCAF, USAF and Bundeswehr. A total of 15,495 T-6s of all variants were built. Operational history, combat use: 28 T-6 Texans were employed by the 1st and 2nd Fighter Squadrons of the Syrian Air Force in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, providing ground support for Syrian troops, and launching airstrikes against Israeli airfields, ships, and columns, losing one aircraft to anti-aircraft fire. They also engaged in air-to-air combat on a number of occasions, with a tail gunner shooting down an Israeli Avia S-199 fighter. The Royal Hellenic Air Force employed 3 squadrons of British and American supply T-6D and G Texans for close air support, observation, and artillery spotting duties during the Greek Civil War, providing extensive support to the Greek army during the Battle of Gramos. Communist guerrillas called these aircraft ogulatas, because they saw them flying very early in the morning. After the Milkmen, the guerrillas waited for the armed Spitfires and Heeldovers. During the Korean War and, to a lesser extent, the Vietnam War, T-6s were pressed into service as forward air control aircraft. These aircraft were designated T-6 Mosquitoes. No. 1340 Flight RAF used the Harvard in Kenya against the Mau Mau in the 1950s, where they operated with 20-pound bombs and machine guns against the gangs. Some operations took place at altitudes around 20,000 feet above mean sea level. A Harvard was the longest-serving RAF aeroplane, with an example, taken on strength in 1945, still serving in the 1990s. The T-6G was also used in a light attack or counterinsurgency role by France during the Algerian War and Special Escadrilles d'Aviation La Copyright Gare d'Appui, armed with machine guns, bombs and rockets. At its peak, there were 38 EALAs active. The largest unit was the Groupe d'Aviation La Copyright Gare d'Appui 72, which consisted of up to 21 EALAs. From 1961 to 1975, Portugal used more than 100 T-6Gs, also in the counterinsurgency role, during the Portuguese colonial war. During this war, almost all the Portuguese Air Force bases and airfields in Angola, Mozambique and Portuguese Guinea had a detachment of T-6Gs. In 1955, Argentine Navy SNJ-4s were dispatched to attack government troops on June 16 during the Revolución Cubana Libertadora, and one was shot down by a loyalist Gloucester Meteor. Argentine Navy SNJ-4s were used by the Colorado rebels in the 1963 Argentine Navy revolt, launching attacks on the 8th Regimiento de Caballería de Tanks on April 2 and 3, knocking out several M4 Sherman tanks but losing one SNJ to anti-aircraft fire. Indiana, 1957-58, the Spanish Air Force used T-6s as counterinsurgency aircraft in the IFNI War, armed with machine guns, iron bombs and rockets, achieving an excellent reputation due to its reliability, safety record and resistance to damage. The Pakistan Air Force used T-6Gs in the 1971 war as a night ground support aircraft hitting soft transport vehicles of the Indian Army. In the early hours of December 5, during a convoy interdiction mission in the same area, squadron leader Israr Qureshi's T-6G Harvard was hit by Indian anti-aircraft ground fire and a shell fractured the pilot unregistered trademark S right arm. Profusely bleeding, the pilot flew the aircraft back with his left hand and landed safely. The World War II vintage prop engine trainers were pressed into service and performed satisfactorily in the assigned role of convoy escorters at night. T-6s remained in service, mainly as a result of the United Nations arms embargo against South Africa's apartheid policies, with the South African Air Force as a basic trainer until 1995. They were replaced by Pilatus PC-7 MKII turboprop trainers. Recent research testbed, the Harvard 4 has also been recently used in Canada as a testbed aircraft for evaluating cockpit attitude displays. Its aerobatic capability permits the instructor pilot to maneuver the aircraft into unusual attitudes, then turn the craft over to an evaluator pilot in the blind rear cockpit to recover, based on one of several digitally generated attitude displays. Variants. Operators. An Argentina, Argentine Army Aviation, Argentine Naval Aviation, an Austria, Austrian Air Force. A Belgium, Belgian Air Force, a Biafra, Biafran Air Force. A Bolivia, Bolivian Air Force, Naval Aviation, a Brazil, Brazilian Air Force, a Canada, Royal Canadian Air Force, Royal Canadian Navy, National Research Council. A Republic of China, Republic of China Air Force, a Chile, Chilean Air Force, a Colombia, Colombian Air Force, a Republic of the Congo, Congolese Air Force, a Cuba, Cuban Air and Air Defense Force, a Denmark. Royal Danish Air Force, a Dominican Republic, Dominican Air Force, an El Salvador, Air Force of El Salvador, a France, French Air Force, a Gabon, Gabon Air Force. A Germany, Luftwaffe, a Greece, Hellenic Air Force, a Haiti, Armed Forces of Haiti, a Hong Kong, Royal Hong Kong Auxiliary Air Force, a Honduras, Honduran Air Force, a India, Royal Indian Air Force, Indian Air Force, a Indonesia, Indonesian Air Force, ex-Dutch aircraft. Iran, Iranian Air Force, a Israel, Israeli Air Force, an Italy, Aeronautica Militaire, a Japan, Japan Air Self-Defense Force, Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. A Katanga, Force or copyright Ryan Katangez, a Lebanon, Lebanese Air Force, a Republic of Korea, Republic of Korea Air Force. Royal Laotian Air Force, a Mexico, Mexican Air Force total of 120 delivered, 47 AT-6 and 73 T-6C, a Morocco, Royal Moroccan Air Force, a Netherlands, Royal Netherlands Air Force, Dutch Naval Aviation Service, Royal Netherlands East Indies Army Air Force, post-war, a Mozambique, Mozambique Air and Air Defence Forces, a New Zealand, one maintained for historic flight, Royal New Zealand Air Force, a Norway, one maintained for historic flight. Royal Norwegian Air Force, a Nicaragua, Nicaraguan Air Force, a Pakistan, Pakistan Air Force, a Paraguay, Paraguayan Air Force, Paraguayan Naval Aviation. A Philippines, Philippine Air Force, a Portugal, Portuguese Air Force, Portuguese Naval Aviation, a South Africa, South African Air Force. A Southern Rhodesia, Southern Rhodesian Air Force, a South Vietnam, Vietnam Air Force, a Saudi Arabia, Saudi Air Force, a Spain, Spanish Air Force. A Soviet Union, Soviet Air Forces, a Sweden, Swedish Air Force 145 Harvard Ibis SK-16A, 106 T-6A, T-6B, SNJ-3, SNJ-4 as SK-16B and 6 SNJ-2 as SK-16C, A Switzerland, Swiss Air Force, a Syria, Syrian Air Force, a Thailand, Royal Thai Air Force, a Tunisia, Tunisian Air Force, a Turkey, Turkish Air Force, 196 planes of various types, a United Kingdom, Royal Air Force, Royal Navy. A United States, United States Army Air Corps Army Air Forces, United States Air Force, United States Navy, United States Marine Corps, United States Coast Guard, a Uruguay, Uruguayan Air Force. A Venezuela, Venezuelan Air Force, a Yugoslavia, SFR Yugoslav Air Force, a Zaire. Specifications. Data from Geneva Euro unregistered trademark S fighting aircraft of World War II. General characteristics: crew, 2, length, 29 feet, wingspan, 42 feet, height, 11 feet 8 in, wing area, 253.7 FTA squared, empty weight, 4,158 pounds, loaded weight, 5,617 pounds, power plant, 1 Pratt & Whitney Air1340AN1 Wasp radial engine, 600 horsepower, performance, maximum speed, 208 miles per hour at 5,000 feet, cruise speed, 145 miles per hour, range 730 miles, service ceiling, 24,200 feet, rate of climb, 1200 feet per minute, wing loading, 22.2 pounds FTA squared, power mass, 0.11 horsepower per pound, armament, provision for up to 3 0.30 and machine gun. In popular culture, after World War II, the National Air Races established a unique racing class for the T-6 Harvard aircraft. This class continues today at the Reno National Air Races each year. Since the Second World War, the T-6 has been a regular participant at air shows, and was used in many movies. For example, in Tora, and The Final Countdown, converted single-seat T-6s painted in Japanese markings represent Mitsubishi Zeros, whereas in A Bridge Too Far it represented the Razorback Republic P-47 Thunderbolt. Some were modified for the Dutch film Soldaat van Oranje to represent the Dutch pre-World War II fighter Fokker DXXI. The T-6 also appeared in the Pat Benatar video for Shadows of the Night. The New Zealand Warbirds Roaring Forties aerobatic team USAAC Royal New Zealand Air Force Harvards. The Flying Lions aerobatic team uses Harvards acquired that the South African Air Force was decommissioning. See also T-6 Texan variants, T-6 Texan II, related development, North American NA-16, North American BT-9, North American A-27, North American P-64, CAC Wirraway, aircraft of comparable role, configuration and era, Aradoa 96, Fiat G49, Kyushu K10 WFM AI 22 deciliters, Macchi MB 323 miles master, Piaggio Pages 150, Soko 522 Volmet Vihirai Vilpiri, Yakovlev Yak 11, related lists, list of aircraft of World War II, list of military aircraft of the United States, list of aircraft of the RAF, list of aircraft of the RNZAF, references, notes. Bibliography. External links, Warbird Alley, T-6 Harvard page, history, photos, specs, and links, Texan, Harvard and SNJ registry, lists approximately 1,200 extant T-6s by serial number, the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association, backgrounder on the Harvard 4, AT-6, Schoolman with an Attitude, a Yank at Grantham, first North American basic trainer delivered to the RAF for the Harvard described flight 1939, TO. TT6C2 Handbook Erection and Maintenance Instructions T6, -6A, 6B USAAF Model T6C, T6D Navy Models SNJ3, SNJ4, SNJ5, SNJ6.